Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. For the guys that we saw last week, it's nice to see you again. So we will be talking about skills audits today. To introduce myself, my name is Cecilia Denton. I'm an industrial psychologist and I'm the owner of PTES Consulting. So just in short, PTES stands for Psychometric Testing and Evaluation Services. So we started as a practice, but with the years as we were growing, we incorporated the HR service into our firm. So it became it moved from a practice to a firm, and now we provide HR Talk. So together with HR Talk, who's another consulting firm that we work closely together with, we are going to talk today about psychometric assessment, but mainly about skills audits and how that can benefit your company. So that's who we are. So just a brief overview of what we will be covering today. So firstly, we will be talking about the background and the context to psychometric assessment. So the benefits of psychometric assessment and skills audits. So we will start with that, and then we will talk about how skills audits links to it. Then we will be talking about the definition of a skills audit, the aim of a skills audit, the benefits of a skills audit, but then also the benefits of a skills audit for staff. So although sometimes it sounds daunting or nerve-wracking, there is benefits for staff as well. Then we will look at the assessment methodology, how we approach it. We would look at the particular instruments that you can use to do a skills audit. And most importantly, we are going to discuss the stratified systems model. So some of you might have heard about this before. This will be the crux of your skills audit, and this can be the saving grace for your organization. So the stratified systems model, or theory as I describe it, is very important in this presentation. And then we will look at the benchmark for the skills audit. Like, what does it look like? I'm going to give you great examples of what it looks like, and I think you would love it. So just a quick background and context to psychometric assessment. So this is what we covered last week when we were talking about psychometric assessment in general. So all of us know the cost of a bad hire. This is usually 5 times the annual salary of an employee. 36% of organizations state that a bad hire or someone who doesn't have the right skill negatively impacts the employee engagement and culture of an organization. And in 2014, there was 10 billion rands lost in terms of productivity due to labor unrest in South Africa. So that is the beginning part of our psychometric process, but the skills audit links to that. The whole process forms one big picture. So we see a skills audit as part of organizational development. So I've just added here that a skills audit are conducted with psychometric assessment, but it's combined with performance data, it's combined with qualifications, years experience, and any other bio data that you've got. So we never do it in isolation. So, but this is our starting point. All right, and then just a quick overview of the benefits of psychological assessment in the corporate environment. So firstly, it's a scientific and predictive method of assessing talent. It allows for fair discrimination based upon the job requirements. It saves time and cost during the selection process, but then we take it a step further and we enable a seamless integration of the talent processes across the employee lifecycle. So you may do psychometric assessment in the recruitment part, but then you take it further. Then you incorporate it into your whole business. So you don't have to do it only this one part, this one phase, the first phase in your organization, and then leave it there. That result will accompany the rest of that individual's life cycle in your organization. So you make it work for you throughout. It's not something that you do here and there. It's an isolation and you don't see any benefits of it again. You make it part of your whole organization. Also, what is nice, your organization can be big or small or medium. Everyone will benefit from it. All right, so let's look at the definition of a skills audit. So a skills audit is a process of measuring and recording the skills of individual or group of employees. And usually this is done with existing staff. but it will be a benchmark for any new employees coming in. So once again, everyone else must adhere to the standard that you've created in the beginning. So secondly, the term skills audit and training needs analysis are often used interchangeably. So the difference between the two is that a training needs analysis focuses solely on whether employees have the skills and the knowledge to perform in their existing roles, whereas the skills audit is a broader perspective. That's why it falls under the category of organizational development, because it's going to give you a whole big picture of what your organization looks like, what levels your employees are on at the moment based on the job requirements. But then the skills audit will show us, are they where they're supposed to be, and where can we take them to? So you will get a mouthful of information about a candidate, where they are, where they're supposed to be, and what you can do with them. So I'm going to explain to you what that means later on when we flesh it out, what it actually looks like in practical terms. So a training needs analysis aims to identify what training and development are needed, but a skills audit looks to identify skills which exist within your existing workforce, but are currently unrecognized and unused. So I want to explain this in more detail to you. Untapped learning potential is something that you cannot see. A lot of people try and see this in someone's work performance or in an interview. It is such a deep component of a person's brain. It's very, very difficult to see what it is that they can do. What is their actual true performance or untapped learning potential? So this is something that gets missed a lot, because some people sell themselves very well in an interview. Someone could also currently be performing extremely well in their current position, but you do not know what is the potential to go to the next level or take on more responsibility or be successful in additional training. A great attitude over here and great performance over here can give you a part of information, but not everything. You need a scientific tool to give you a total accurate picture of what that individual can do. You can also set up someone for failure if you take, say, a very good salesperson who's doing the actual work, and you're promoting that person to a managerial level position where the job changes, the task changes, the responsibility changes. So you need to know what it is that you are, where you are taking the person to. What is the requirements for that next level? So skills audits are often undertaken at times of change, when requirement for existing skill is in decline and new skills will be needed in the future. So very interestingly enough, now that we're in a time of change, although people are battling financially, we do have a lot of requests to look at the company as it is now, how to keep the most important skills, the most important skills and knowledge that we need, and how we can add to that, and how we can streamline the organization by not duplicating stuff, but keeping the right skill and knowledge in order to survive the time that we are in at the moment. So big times of change at the moment, and therefore quite a lot of interest in skills audits and what it is that we can do right now to survive. So we've seen a lot of that happening. So, okay, the aim of a skills audit. So in simple terms, to explain the aim of a skills audit, that is to identify the existing set of skills within the organization and the skills and knowledge the organization will need in the future. So often what employees may have to offer may lay hidden because organizations simply do not know how to access or harness it. Like I said before, you cannot see with your naked eye untapped learning potential. You can see a portion of it, but you cannot see the whole picture. So skills audits are often undertaken at times when organization needs to restructure its business or refocus its strategy and direction. So that happens a lot right now. So for example, technological developments may mean that certain skills are no longer needed, but new ones will be required. So similarly, a decision to expand by embarking on a new line of business will also call for new areas of expertise. So I have seen with some of my clients who they actually in this year specifically now with the challenges that we've had, literally develop new lines of business, and they need people to take on that responsibility and run with it. So a lot of that has actually been happening. And then thirdly, skills audit should not be seen as a once-off exercise, but rather as an ongoing process, which is centrally placed within an organization's training and development and talent management functions. So that's why you want to have a file for every single employee. You want to monitor their progress and growth within your organization and see how that person can be placed within your organization to deliver the best results for you, but also create job satisfaction for that employee. So it is important to understand that there's a little value in undertaking a skills audit without first thinking about why it is undertaken, how it will be conducted, and how the results will be used. So you really want to define your purpose. It is also vital to consider how the skills audit relates to work already carried out in the context of annual performance appraisals and training needs analysis, so as to avoid any duplication of effort. You always want to have a total combination of everything. You want to have the psychometric results, you want to have performance information, you want to have years of experience, you want to have all of that information to tell you a story. You do not want to take any of these things in isolation. You are welcome to share any questions as they arise. You can share it on the screen with us, and I will address it at the end of the presentation. All right, so let's look at the benefits of skills audits. So skills audits, I think, has got lots of ways that people look at it. People have different ways of doing it. A lot of organizations will only look at performance. There will be self-evaluating questionnaires, like a 360 type of approach. We firmly believe that you need to include in there at least a scientific tool as well, because there will be things that you can't see. So if you plan this very well and you prepare your candidates, your employees very well, you can have great success with it. So firstly, one of the benefits is to gain a clear understanding of employees' skills and abilities. So even if people rate themselves, a lot of people may under or overrate themselves. So you want an accurate picture of what it is that they can do. Once promotion or a higher salary is involved, people will say that they can do every single thing that you ask them to. So you want to put that bring that down into perspective and combine it with other tools so that you can get an accurate picture of what they can really do. So secondly, take advantage of previously unidentified skills in the workforce. So a very skilled, knowledgeable, sharp, loyal person may leave you to get opportunities elsewhere if they feel that they're not being used over here. But you need to be a step ahead and measure and know who's who and who can do what, and keep these people in mind for future development, because often these things just pass you by and you struggle to retain people. So there may be unidentified skills that you're not aware of. That happens more often than you think. You may think that you know a lot, you've got a handle on it. It happens a lot. So redeploy employees to roles where they are better placed within use of their full range of skills. So you could move people laterally, upwards. You can add responsibilities, whatever, but you will only know if you know what cognitive demands that person can actually handle. You cannot see that. You cannot see that with your naked eye. It's impossible. You can see the attitude and you can see performance to an extent, but you need something to tell you what is the true cognitive capacity that this person has. And on top of that, untapped future learning potential. So fourthly, assign the right people to the right projects and identify any skills gaps or areas of strength and weakness within the organization. So you could have a total map of your organization that plots everyone with areas of where they can go to, where they are at the moment, like a total map that you can do your planning from. So demonstrate commitment to the job satisfaction and career development of employees. Of course, it's going to lead to job satisfaction if people feel that they're being utilized, that they're being recognized. Most people would like to have a form of a career plan. Then plan for more effective recruitment and development activities. So that skills audit will form the basis of any new employees entering into your organization. You're going to know what it is that you're looking for. So anyone entering would have to be able to be slotted in your already existing map, because they are the benchmark of what it is that you want. Often this is the problem. We bring in new people. They don't fit with a culture. They don't fit with maybe the same attitude or even cognitive requirements of the organization. So you are more than in your rights to develop a benchmark of what it is that you want, that you need, and what it is that you are going to allow in the future in your organization. So you're going to have that benchmark, establish it, know exactly what is working, and any new skills or experience that comes in needs to fit in with that. But now you're going to know what it is that you're looking for. You're actually going to understand your business better. All right, so the benefits of skills audits for staff. So there are a lot of benefits for the skills audit for staff as well. If the employees are prepared and briefed thoroughly so that there's no fear and nervousness around the whole process, they will know that this is for the benefit of the organization, but also for them. So usually when people hear that they're going to be assessed or there's a test involved, they get nervous or scared. But once properly briefed and communicated, you will have a lot of advantages of a skills audit. So the first one, a better use of personal skills leading to greater job satisfaction. So of course, what we do is develop a personal development plan for the employee as well. This should happen inevitably. So you get your whole bigger picture for the organization, but then you want to take those same results and create a personal development plan for the individual so that they know this is where I'm at. I have the potential to go there, but they should know that if they want to develop, they must actively do something about it. If someone has untapped learning potential, that's not just going to develop miraculously on its own. You will develop your skill and your knowledge as you grow older, as you take on a little bit more responsibility, but you have to actively do something to get yourself to the next level. So you're not going to just leave it there. That person must actively work on themselves. So you can throw some responsibility back to the employee as well. And your go-getters and your sharp, career-orientated, ambitious people will do that. They will inevitably do that. They are going to work on themselves. They're going to welcome this. So they will have better job satisfaction. And then secondly, the more varied work, as employees from different departments are brought into cross-functional teams. So you can have a plan of how people can work better together, how they can link in better together. What we have found before is we would find, for example, sales and marketing skills with someone who's in an administrative, clerical type of role, and no one knew this. And then when you change that person from that role and give them an opportunity in a different department, it opens up a whole new angle for that person to gain experience and have more varied work. So we've had great success of this. We've seen some results that come through that we didn't even expect at all. So you can also, on a different note, you can also see which employees you have that you need to leave where they are, where should you promote or train, your likelihood of success is very limited. You also need to know these things. So it's not all about learning potential and moving and promoting. Sometimes you also need to know who needs to stay where they are, maybe need to be moved laterally or whatever. So there's a lot of information that will come out of it that you actually really need to know. So the last point there, more opportunities for promotion, such as suitable. So in-house candidates will be more easily identified. So before just recruiting from the outside, first assess to see what you've got inside. And assess those candidates internally together with your external candidates. But your employees will value that more. What I have found that even if you don't choose the internal candidate, people are happy because the process was fair and objective and they got an opportunity. So I have really found people that get existing staff that gets angry because they didn't get the promotion. If they were included in the process, they're usually satisfied. They're usually happy because they feel, at least I was considered. You at least gave me a try. All right, so now I want to look at the assessment methodology. So this is a very complex test battery that I have in front of you here. You don't have to approach your skills audit in this way. So just in short to explain to you what we've got here. Here we've got an integrity assessment. Next to that, we've got a cognitive assessment. Then we've got a leadership assessment. And over here, we've got a personality assessment. So you don't have to do such a complex battery. You can if you want to. But this is a typical assessment battery for a new candidate, new people coming in. But if you do an analysis of your existing staff, the minimum that I would suggest to you is to do a cognitive assessment and a personality assessment. It's always great to include the leadership, but it all depends on you. It depends on your purpose. It depends on what you want to see. It depends on what you want to identify your organizational culture to be as, because you will, out of this whole skills audit, you're going to pick up your culture, what your culture looks like from a cognitive perspective, an integrity perspective, attitude perspective, leadership style perspective. So it depends on what it is that you want to see, but this will create a benchmark for you. So at the minimum, I would suggest the cognitive, because this is what we're going to link to the stratified systems model, which could save your organization. We'll go into more detail about that just now. But together with that, a personality assessment will be great. So with only these two, you can already create a profile based on the job requirements of that position. So you take the job description, you create a competency profile of what that person needs in that role to be successful. You assess them on the cognitive and the personal, and you can create a picture of what this person looks like, what they should look like, and what is at the moment. So that is the thing that's very, very important. So, all right, so this will be your approach, but this can be customized. And this is also where we include the years of experience, the qualification, all the additional bio data. But this will be our starting point. So this is our scientifically reliable starting point. All right, so let's look at the psychometric instruments that we will use. So at the minimum, I told you that a cognitive assessment and a behavioral, which is maybe a personality assessment, would be the minimum that I would suggest you work with. But say, for example, in this case, I'm going to show you an example of a skills audit result, which I think you would like, because you want to see what it looks like. For those guys who like the stats and the numbers and the percentages, this is the part you will enjoy. So for example, in this instance, we look at the behavior and we look at cognitive. So what we would do to assess the behavior is we would look at, for example, the personality at work. It is a psychometric instrument that was developed in South Africa. I just like it because it's extremely technical and detailed, comprehensive. It covers everything. So you can use other instruments as well, but we have our reasons for choosing something because I want to give the best to the client where they can do one thing and see everything. The cognitive assessment, here we would look at the cognitive and potential assessment, which is the COPAS. So the COPAS is an assessment that can plot the candidate on the stratified systems model. The CPP, for you that know the CPP, the cognitive process profile, that's the only other assessment that can plot someone on the stratified systems model. So you can do any one of those. This is, of course, a little bit more of a cost-effective option, these two. So you can see everything that you need to see with this test battery. Okay, so let's start with these two. So if we look at the personality at work, let's call it the PAW. So I just jotted down briefly a few things that this personality assessment will look at. So it will cover things like ambition, energy, drive and results driven, process management. Am I process driven or am I results driven? So there you already know what type of position should that person be in. Rule following, investigative in nature, entrepreneurial orientation, sales orientated. Can they see new opportunities? Interpersonal skills, communication skills, the whole emotional intelligence component, which is empathy, emotive involvement, ability to handle rejection, teamwork, being facilitative, supportive, amenable, accommodating. I don't have to read through every single construct here. This is also just a snapshot of what it is that we look at. So this doesn't even encompass the whole personality that we look at. But just to give you an idea, the accountability and reliability, that the attitude we can pick up here. You know, that sometimes we have the typical victim attitude or pessimism. This is what we can pick up from here. And what I mentioned over here is this is used to develop an organizational departmental competency model for the organization. So we test the person and we create a benchmark of what they should look like. We test the person and this is what they look like. So then you can see where are your gaps from an attitudinal behavioral perspective. The next one is the cognitive assessment. So this is where we're going to plot them on a scientifically reliable way. What is the cognitive ability of this person to function in a specific role? So here we look at a variety of things. So mental alertness, what you will see today. What is it that this person can give me today? So the mental alertness, analytical and logical reasoning in problem solving, numerical orientation, creativity, spatial relations, and then very importantly, the detail. More importantly, the future untapped learning potential. And then lastly, we can plot the individual on the stratified systems model. That is crucial. And I'm going to explain to you why that specific component is so important. So once again, you can also develop a competency model for the organization based on this. All right. We spoke about the stratified systems model briefly last week. And this is why we're having this session today, because I want to show you how we can take just this model further in your organization. So when you recruit new people, you plot them on this work level model, because you need to know if you are appointing a manager, are they cognitively ready for the cognitive demands on that level position? If you're appointing someone on operational level, you want to know whether they are cognitively strong enough to function on that level. If you're looking for an executive, the person must be cognitively strong enough to function on executive level. So in easy terms to explain to you this model, it looks very complex and very fancy, but it's very, very simple. So at the bottom here, you can see that this scale goes from 1 to 5. So the scale is based on Elliott Jark's work level model. So on this particular test, if the person completes a test and they get a score of 1 out of 5, they're at the bottom here. And this means they can do very routine, manual type of work, very entry level. They can see a problem, they cannot solve it. Then the second level, level 2, that would be people that's comfortable with information or working with information on operational level. So do not put a person that scores a 2 in a managerial position, because they're going to struggle. They're going to take longer. It's too complex for them. If you score a 3 out of 5, it means that I can work with the complexity of work on managerial or supervisory level, or even specialist level. So it's already getting a little bit more complex. I can create frameworks in which people need to do things. Operational level is still very back and forth. It's very simple, straight lined. But when you get to level 3, it gets a little bit more complex. I can do maybe more than 2 things at a time. I can develop frameworks in which we need to work and solve problems. When you have a 4 out of 5, now we're looking at divisional head. Now we're looking at executive level. This person can work with the complexity of executive level work. So if you need an executive, you have to score at least a 4 or maybe a 3 with the potential to go to 4. So it doesn't have to be that rigid as well. We need to look at the whole bigger picture when we get the scores. Don't be too rigid, but this is where we will advise, because also the way that you can see that this grows. The graph indicates growth. So your skills and your knowledge develop over time together with other things, together with your attitude, your willingness to learn, your willingness to educate yourself. So we're not just looking at education here. It's not that rigid. That would be very, very unfair, because given an opportunity, someone can maybe develop faster than someone else. So we want to look at attitude, motivation, drive, all of that incorporated into the cognitive. And then just lastly, if you score a 5 out of 5, that means that you're very senior executive level. You're almost on your way out of the organization. That's with years of experience, accumulated knowledge and skill. That's like exco level. So we have found very young people that score very high on this graph. That means cognitively they're there, but do not neglect the importance of gaining knowledge through years, learning, experience, all of that. So we have moved, psychology has moved from that where you assess someone's IQ, you give them a number, there they go. We don't do that anymore because that is very limited and very unfair. So you'll find if you want to test your IQ, they are very unlikely to give you an IQ score these days because I can score a score, but it's going to depend on a whole bunch of other stuff, whether I'm successful. I think most people will agree with that because that is real. That is how it works. So you will develop over time and you'll grow over time, and we can see who will and who won't together with the other information that we're getting. So never interpret this too rigidly and too fixed, but this is a brilliant model that you can base your whole organization on. All your employees can be plotted on this, and you'll have a plan for every single one of them together with all the other stuff. Okay, so I want to show you what an example of a succession plan or a skills audit or a whatever it is that you want to call it, what it will look like. So now we've done a personality assessment and we've done a cognitive assessment. So we're going to plot your individuals. So firstly, the red would mean that I'm a non-match with the requirements of the position. So firstly, we're going to look at the cognitive match, but then we will incorporate all the other things, the personality and the performance and things like that. But firstly, we're going to plot the cognitive part. So red will be a non-match. Yellow would mean that I'm functional in my position. I'm supposed to be on a level 3. I am on a level 3. It's working. The turquoise blue means that I'm in a lower level position, but I've got a higher level of cognitive capacity. So for example, I am in a level 2 position, so very operational, but my tests show that I am actually, my thinking, my reasoning is already on level 3. That just means that we can do something with you. We can give you more responsibility, more cognitive demands. We can give you more complexity, not just more workload, but we can give you a little bit more complexity within your role. And then the green would be a high potential. So that would mean I'm supposed to be on level 3. I am on level 3, but I can go to level 4 with training and with some guidance or help, whatever, coaching, or whatever. So this would be the 4 things that we would use to plot the person. All right, so let's look at a summary for a company. So now, firstly, I have just logged all the details here so that I can get a whole bigger picture. So let's look at the top candidate here, Tom Testing. So his position currently is a national sales executive. So if we look at the content of the job, and this we would do together with a company, we won't just give them a number. We would look at the contents of the job, the complexity of the job, the managerial level of the job. This can be done in conjunction with a salary benchmarking, where you do a job grading, where you actually evaluate which level the person is. So there we will get an indication of what level on the stratified systems model the person should be. So in this case, because it's a national sales executive role, we indicated that this person needs at least a level 4 on the stratified model to be successful here. So this is what they should be. Then we look at the actual level of education of all these candidates. And this candidate has a national diploma. So for someone who's completed matric and then just did a tertiary qualification, we could expect a little bit of a lower score on the cognitive assessment, but interestingly enough, the person did actually very well. So if you look at the score here in the corner, this person obtained a level of 4. So it does correlate with how he should be performing. He shows even more learning potential because it looks like he can go from a 4 to a 5, obviously given very good formal level of education. But the nice thing here is this person is actually quite intelligent, that we can deduce here, because his former level of education is a tertiary education. So it's not like he's got a degree or an honors degree or a master's already, although this can be compared to a master's degree because this is a very, very high level of functioning. So without having formal level of education, he's performing currently extremely well. So there's a lot of things that we can deduce from these results. If we look at the next candidate, they should be on a level 4. They obtained a 5, which makes them a high potential again. I want to look at someone down here that's maybe scored a little bit lower. Let's look at the candidate number 5 here. This is an operations manager. The contents of this job, although it just says operations manager, upon analyzing the role, we determined they have to be on a level 4. This person has got an N3, but their actual performance is on a level 2 and they can go to 3. So can you see there's already a mismatch here because the requirements of the level of the job was a little bit higher than where they are at. There's quite a big difference between that 2 and the requirement of 4. This person may be struggling quite a lot in the position. And often when we give feedback, the client will feed it back to us that is actually quite a problem. They just don't know what the problem is and why, because the attitude of this person is great. Then you can see here that the cognitive demands of the role is maybe just too complex. You can develop this person, but it must be done actively, formally, and really driven. You can't just leave the person and expect them to just grow by themselves. If they've got a score like this, you have to actively do something about it. So if there's any questions about it, you would have to do something actively about it. All right, let's plot the candidates on the stratified systems model. So I took that whole group of people, I plotted them here. So let's look at the next graph that's even more descriptive. So what I've done is I did make a bell curve just to see the spread of these candidates. So you can see that there's about 3 candidates at the bottom here that's not entirely fitted to where they should be, but the majority is where they should be. And then you've got a small percentage that can go even higher. So this is quite a good distribution. So this company, even though they've got a few mismatches, they shouldn't be in too big trouble, because this sounds very statistically almost normal. So we don't want any people down at the bottom here, but it's a normal distribution. It's likely to happen. You are going to have people that's not as good, well functioning than the rest. So I've made an even better description here. So what I've done is I've just indicated the percentage of people that's not a fit. So 17% of the people in this department is a non-match. 17% sounds high, but if you look at the numbers, it's only 3 people. And then the top cluster is 83% is functional and high potentials. So if I look at that percentage, 83 versus 17, this is looking very good for the client. This is really not a stressful situation that's a deal breaker. That's going to cost them problems. So here I've broken it up. You've got about 33% that's functional in the current position. This would be the yellow blocks. That's good enough. You don't need to only have high potentials. You don't have to have only scores of 4s and 5s. It's a very high expectation. Don't expect it. You don't have to have only brain surgeons and astronauts in your company. That's unrealistic. So 22% is in a lower level position, but can be promoted to a higher or can be helped into a higher position, and 28% high potential candidates that can be developed to the next level. So that's if we break it up, but I think the 83% is very good news for this particular client. So this is where you can just see whether you're in balance. Are the people cognitively in the role where they should be? All right, so here I've done a team overview of the personality styles. So this company in particular did very well. It doesn't often look this green. You also don't have to expect it to be this green. You know, this was just a company that was by chance doing extremely well. So we took the competency profile for the whole organization. So it's based on the positions, but This competency profile is linked to the organizational strategic goals, to the bigger picture. This will also give you an indication of your culture. What type of people do you have here? So we plotted every single person on this role so you can see where your problems are. Strategic thinking is not a very big problem. I would say 50-50. There's a lot of solution-focused practical people here that execute, which they do need, and about a few of them, in this case, the people that needed to be strategic are strategic. So even though we have a whole bunch of yellows here, the people that got yellow here are the practical executors. So once again, this is not a very big problem for this company in particular. And then you can also see there's a trend in this company where their influencing style, their communication style is not where it should be. Everything else works incredibly well, but they are neglecting their internal communication. Their communication with clients, delivering on the clients were excellent, but internally, they are so extremely self-reliant and autonomous and independent that they just don't, they're almost functioning that they don't need each other. But they don't have to function in isolation like that. They can be better if they address this problem. All right, and then we've made a whole bigger picture of every single candidate, the level that they should be on, a match of the cognitive requirements, and then a big overview of the strategic thinking, the teamwork, and sales orientation. So once again, you can also plot your candidates. You can get a whole bigger picture of what your organization look like. So you can look at your strengths and your development area. So here you can clearly see that the executors that sales orientated are mostly green, and your strategic thinkers in this case, there's fewer of them. As long as the people that's supposed to be strategic are strategic, then we don't need everyone else to be strategic, but it would depend on who they are. So you would have this feedback with the client and explaining to them what this means. What is the implications of your organization if it looks like this? What do we need to change and develop? You can see that the teamwork and the emotional intelligence is getting a little bit neglected. But over here, you can see the sales, the execution is actually very good. So you would combine this feedback with the organization's actual output. Here you look at the financials, you look at the profitability, you look at the numbers. So the numbers people will enjoy this part. They will appreciate this because this gives you the bottom line. All right, and then we will end off our report with the overall summary of the company. So here we would look at the findings, what it is that we found, suggestions for every single person or department, recommendations. But here we will talk about the implications for your business. So inevitably, your client will tell you our symptoms are that, you know, maybe there's lack of communication, or clients are moaning about specific parts, like we do the one part correctly and the second part not so well. So usually you can expect that what comes out here is already a system of what it is, a symptom of what it is that you're experiencing in the company at the moment. So usually it makes sense. It makes sense if you throw in a scientifically reliable tool that will actually do a good analysis for you. I want to show you one more example of a competency match. And this was actually a real match of an organization that we did. So here we plotted everyone on senior executive level. That's level 5, 4 to 5 on the stratified systems model. The middle management level, which is level 3, 4. Technical operational level, which is level 1 or 2. And then the admin level. And lastly, we had the cleaners. And this was very interesting that we got patterns right through from executive level, right through to the cleaners. And I'm going to show you. So this is their competency model that we established before the time. This was the match. This was really, really interesting because from executive level straight down to cleaners level, the people orientation amongst all of them were neglected. The decision-making was neglected. If I look at the red down here, the fairness and integrity, that is also the way that they're experiencing the company. So look at your culture, how people believe the they're experiencing the culture of your organization. Look at the team and co-responsibility orientation. It is very significant that the trend goes right through from executive level down to cleaners. It doesn't often happen like that. This company already had a very, very big problem with people working totally in isolation and independently. They don't want to take accountability because you were sort of left on your own. So I just found that even the red and the green were straight through the same. So even if you look at this green block, self-sufficiency went from level 4-5 down to level 1. There's self-sufficiency, but no one is people-orientated. So you can, without me even explaining to you what this company should look like, you can already assume what it is looking like in practice. So this is just a snapshot of an example of what it will look like when you do something like this. All right, I just want to look at one of the questions. So a question of one of the audience members is, can all of these assessments be done online for a company that has multiple offices in different provinces? So that is the great thing about our technology today, is every single assessment can be conducted online. The brilliance was when COVID started for us, we didn't make any changes. We just continued online like we used to do before. So absolutely, it can be done online. We set up the link. It's very, very user-friendly and customer-orientated. So you just log in, you do your assessments, but we also brief the candidates extremely well. So they're not left on their own, someone sitting in Kimberley doing the assessment, they don't know what's going on. They get briefed by us. We monitor the process. We are online and available for them. Even when they receive the link, they can do the assessments and they would know exactly what it is that they're supposed to do. So even though people are scared of online, we do it very, very monitored and with guidance. So please send us any other questions if you have. Something that sometimes pops up amongst people is they would ask us, how big must your organization be if you want to do a skills audit? You can be very small, medium, or very, very large. You don't have to wait until you are 1,000 people before you can do this. You can have 10 people or 50 people because you can already create a benchmark for what it is that you have right there. I would almost go as far as to say you can be 3, 4, 5 people. You can be any amount of people if you know who you have. And as you are expanding, anyone else that comes into your organization, as small as it is, will be able to slot in with your culture and the requirements that you require. All the companies are different. The cultures are just different. So there's another question here. Would you consider doing just the current senior and middle management? You can start with your senior and your middle management. If you can do it in stages. Most companies start with or only do the senior and middle management group. You can do the second group later on. But if you want to assess your leadership, that would definitely be my starting point, because the leadership is critical, because you need to know whether they are on the correct cognitive requirements. There's nothing worse than having an executive or manager that scores a level 2, that struggles, and the people below them are ahead of them. It's disastrous. So you want to know where they are at. You also want to know the management style, the way that they deal with the subordinates. It's critical. That will also give you your culture. What type of culture do you have? Do you have a directive, micromanagement type of style, or is it very independent and delegative? So definitely, I will start with the senior and the middle management. And then we've got another question. What is the minimum level of education required to do the assessment? You know what is great about the South African assessments? We are so far ahead of the world because of our history and our background. We have developed tests that is language and culture free. So any person can do our assessment, whether you've got matric or not, it doesn't matter. You can, from high school level, say grade 6, 7, and upwards up to professor level, can do the same assessment, and you will be fairly treated because we can plot you And then we can see your learning potential. So say, for example, someone didn't have a great schooling opportunity and they only got to grade 8, or they did do matric, but it was poor schooling. So they struggled. They weren't given an accurate chance or opportunity. We can plot where they are today accurately. Where's the brain today without that formal level of education? And then where we can take them to. I've seen it, and it's fantastic when you can identify a person who think that they can't do it, but they've got that hidden potential that you can't see. So you don't have to have a minimum educational level. You can take anyone from high school up to any senior level. Same test, you'll see the cognitive capacity and the future learning potential. That is also the difference between remember the old reasoning test? I'm calling it old, but still using it today. You know, like your typical verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, and abstract reasoning. That only looks at what can I do today. It's very limited. It's only going to look at what. So if I have a bad day, I'm going to probably do badly on my numerical or my verbal. What the new developed South African tests do, they look at what I'm doing today, and it's going to give you my future untapped learning potential, but it is based on picture and pattern completion. So your typical reasoning tests work on maths or verbal reasoning. So if my English is not great, I'm not going to do that well. If I'm not good at maths, I'm not going to do that well. You'll not get an accurate picture of who you've got. What the benefit of pattern completion and abstract testing will bridge and overcome those limitations that we have with the old-fashioned type of reasoning assessments. So even internationally, they're using our South African test because we're so far ahead. So we've been doing these tests with people in Africa, in the UK, and in America because it's language and culture free. So if you are also worried about fairness and objectivity, specifically for the South African culture, this is the way to go. You're going to see those people, you know, those people that's very shy and quiet in the interview, and you're not convinced about them. Give them one of these assessments. You'll clearly see what the actual capability is. Any other questions with regards to these? Are very good questions that we've got. Is there any other questions that we've got around how to approach this type of assessment? I think that the biggest point is you want to define your purpose of why you want to do this exercise. What is the purpose? And luckily, there's not only just one answer. You can get an overview of the organization, but you can use it for succession planning. You can use it for skills gap analysis, career planning for every individual. They can do coaching from there. There's just multiple benefits from doing an exercise like this. And also together, you can identify your company culture. All right, we've got another few minutes left. If there's anyone else who wants to ask something about maybe even how the stratified systems model work. The stratified systems model is a thing that all the HR people really love. That's like the model that most people are working around today. So you can even Google it. The stratified systems model or theory developed by Elliot Jark. If you Google it today, everything will pop up. You'll see all the information around it. And it's really better than just testing people's IQ. It's not as accurate as this model. If there's any questions later on that you have around maybe costing or the process, you can contact HR Talk and they will forward you this presentation. You can also make contact with me if you just want to know what and why and how you approach this. So they will be sending you some information on this. And we can also talk about maybe customization, like if your company is unique and you want to see specific things, we can talk about the customization of that. All right, so if there's no more questions, last chance to ask any questions about the skills audit. All right, let's just see. Okay, great. If there's no other questions, we will end the call. And but please make sure that you make contact with HR Talk for a copy of this presentation. Also, please, before I forget, please join our next week Wednesday's talk about competency-based interviews. We're going to show you how to develop your own competency-based interview to accompany your psychometric assessment when you employ new people. Before I forget, that will be very, very helpful for you. And somebody's just asking about the computer literacy level. The only thing that they need to do is to press 2 buttons on the computer. So computer literacy is not a big requirement. Someone who doesn't have any computer literacy, I would suggest that there's just some supervision. So a senior HR person can also supervise, but it's very simple. They're only going to press 2 buttons. So they don't have to type, they don't have to have Excel or Word or anything like that. Or just be able to use the mouse to click, because the person is only going to click their options. All right, thank you. There's some people who says it's very informative. So please make contact if there's any other questions that you need. And okay, perfect. I'm going to say goodbye now. Please log in next week, Wednesday. I'm hoping to see you then again. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.